and he is on Trunk Nation live on the air. What's going on, Dan?
Not much, Eddie. Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure, man.
Hey, you hit the nail on the head again. I agree with you 100% that Billie Eilish is far from a rock star. Now you said that this shouldn't be a story, but I think the story here is that many of her generation of pop and so-called rock artists are not influenced at all by the talent from the real musicians from the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. They just don't feel the need to know.
Yeah, well, that's a valid point, but here's where the problem is, Dan, is, well, I guess I could see where the influence aspect of it would come in, but I put some of that on Van Halen themselves because that's the band that we're talking about here and just their unbelievable amount of inactivity. You know, during her lifetime, there's been nothing, hardly anything from Van Halen. So if it was a different rock band that was currently active, and even if it like here would be an example for her. Like, I would say, well, have you heard of Aerosmith? And if she said, and if she said yes, then you could, well, Aerosmith, you know, they're doing Vegas residency. Steven Tyler was on American Idol. I mean, they're out there. There's stuff going on. Or like, I would go further down the rabbit hole then and be like, because I would just be curious and be like, well, have you heard of AC/DC? Do you know who Kiss is? Now, Kiss is such a brand name and the image that would be hard to not know who Kiss was. But
right.
The thing with Van Halen is they're just so, like, unless the only place you're going to hear anything about Van Halen is, well, if you listen to this show, hearing us talk about them every day, but if you listen to classic rock radio, because they just don't put anything out and they don't tour and they're just not really active right now.
Right.
So that was my point.
I'm talking about overall, though. They just don't seem to care. You know, if you look at the rock artists from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they always cite earlier artists like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis as major influences.
Right.
And some of those guys were 30 years removed from, you know, where those artists were. You know, I mean, it's just sad to me that, you know, rock and roll seems to be going.
Yeah, but I understand where you're coming from, Dan, but here's where I go back to. She's not a rock artist. I don't care how anybody wants to spin that. That's not a diss. She doesn't make rock music. Her world has nothing to do with, her creative output has nothing to do with rock. So her influence, naturally, if that's the music she likes, whatever you want to call what she makes, pop or dance or whatever, whatever it comes from, the influence of this music her and her brother create, and it's been greatly successful and fantastic honor for the success, but there's not the roots and influence of it are likely going to and naturally would come from previous pop or dance music because there is no connection whatsoever musically to it for rock. Now, if she was a rock artist saying this, then I could almost understand people having a problem with it.
But even what you said about I can't remember who it was, but the guy who didn't know who Sebastian Bach was, that's a shame to be called a rock artist and not know who Skid Row is.
Yeah, but again, remember in that case, and thank you, Dan, for the call. I hope you come out to the Invasion next Thursday since you're in L.A. But remember that, again, the last time they did anything of note in terms, and I don't mean this because they're all buddies and they're all still doing good stuff, but I'm talking big commercial splash. The guy would have been like 2-3 years old, and we don't know what it was like in England for a band like that. We don't know what the awareness was in, maybe around 2000 when he would have been about 10. What was, how much awareness for Skid Row was there in 2000, 2001 for a 10 or 11-year-old in England? So you got to keep it in some sort of context. Everybody has the things that they grew up with. Everybody has the things that made impact on them. I just don't think there's any real shame in it. I just don't think, hell, man, people think that because of what I do and how long I've done it and all the Stump the Trunk stuff that people saw on that metal show, I used to always and to this day I get kind of cringe a little when I get painted as where I should probably embrace it and be thankful people think that way, I always kind of like bristle a little bit when people are like, oh, he knows everything. Eddie Trunk knows everything, man. You can't stump him. He knows it all. And I can't respond quick enough to saying, no, I don't. Because I don't feel that way. I certainly don't think I know it all at all. Never did. Never did. But when we were doing that metal show, they played that up because they knew it made me uncomfortable, and it set me up for the fall when I got something wrong. It was the whole basis of the show was the ball-busting aspect of that and putting me in awkward, uncomfortable situations a lot of times. So, but to this day, when I run into people or I meet people and like, hey, man, you can't be stumped. You know everything. No, I don't. I can't respond quick enough. Like, no, I don't. And I know a little bit more than maybe the average person because I spent my whole life in it. I understand that. It's what I do, but I would never be a guy that could tell you. So my point is that I'm sure there's stuff in rock, me being a rock guy my whole life and being my whole career rock, I'm sure there's stuff you or anyone could hit me with a band I haven't heard of or that escaped me or something I don't know. So I'm not going to really get overly excited or concerned that a 17-year-old girl doesn't know who Van Halen is. It doesn't faze me or bother me at all. Because she doesn't make rock music. She's not a rock artist. And then you throw on top of it, it's a band that has been largely inactive during her lifetime. John in PA. What's going on, John?
Hey, Eddie, listen, I'm a guy your age, okay? So Billie Eilish not knowing Van Halen is the same as me not knowing who the fuck she is because I didn't know.
Great point, John. Great point.
I had no idea. In fact, I thought she was a dude until I saw the video.
Oh, you still don't know who she is?
No, I don't know. Well, yeah, I saw the video.
Oh, because of all... Wait, because of all of this, you looked up to see who she was?
Well, I saw the story, and there was a video link.
That's awesome.
And it wasn't until I saw the video, I could have thought it was a dude, Billy.
But there's nothing wrong with that, John. I wouldn't make fun of you for that because, look, if people started calling this radio show right now and asking me, a 55-year-old rock fan, to tell them about all this pop stuff that's going on that's happening today, I'd look like a total asshole because 99% of it, I wouldn't be able to tell you a thing about it. But the one thing I'll never do is fake that. I'll never fake that. I'll never pretend. So I'll be like, yeah, I don't know. Her, I happen to know because she is so hot in terms of sales right now and on the radio and on MTV and in all these award shows and, you know, on every list for best new artist. And maybe in her field, she is very talented. I don't know. I'm not going to profess to speak on that because it's not rock and I'm a rock guy. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with you not knowing who she is, John.
So there's nothing wrong with her not knowing who Van Halen is. I mean, you're precisely right.
Yeah, exactly right. Great point, John. Thank you for the call.
You bet.
See ya. That's a great point. John just reversed it. He doesn't know who she is until this came up, and then he Googled her. I guarantee you there's a ton of people in my audience that don't know who she is until now. Maybe she should make a rock record. Maybe she's the one that could get Eddie Van Halen out of the house. How funny would it be if she's the one that got the information about Van Halen? She got Wolfgang to respond. So there's at least that. There's a pulse. It's on their radar. Maybe she's the one that could finally get Eddie Van Halen to make a statement and tell us anything. She did get Wolfie to tweet about it. This is incredible. And, you know, for me, even though that's not my world of music, when the bigger stuff, I try to at least have a cursory understanding of it and knowledge of it. just because, I like to talk about the music business, and I keep an eye on what's going on with these award shows. And, I'm never going to say I like that stuff or spend time talking about that stuff. And it has no connection to me musically at all for the most part. But I've always kept a casual eye on it, just to have an awareness of the name of the artist and what they're doing and who's hot on any given year. I'll tell you something I find myself doing. When MTV used to play music videos, even in the later years when they got away from rock and played all this other stuff that really wasn't for me, if I was reading or doing something, I'd have it on in the background and with the volume real low. And the reason would be is that when these acts would come on, because they'd always play like the top 10 or 20 biggest songs at the time, I could look at the printout on the screen and see who the artist is and at least have some awareness of who they are. And that kind of goes back to my many years working in a record store where I had to know about music to some degree that I didn't personally like because I had to sell it to people. So even though I am not in that world at all, I try, there's tons I don't know or care about, quite frankly, but I try to at least have a general overview on where we're at. And how I can do it now is there used to be a channel called Palladia, which used to be all rock. Well, not all rock, but a lot of rock concerts and long-form music concerts on there. Well, MTV, when they got rid of VH1 Classic and made that MTV Classic, and they changed Palladia and they changed the name of it to what it's called now, which is MTV Live. Now, that used to be a lot of live concerts. In recent weeks, it's been nothing but music videos, but all pop and hip-hop music videos. I can't even find a rock video from even anyone new on that thing, God forbid. But I'll pop that on if I'm reading or doing research or whatever. I'll put it on as background on the TV low. Why? Because the videos will siphon through, and most of the music I can't stand hearing. But I can at least say, oh, that's what Travis Scott does. Oh, that's what Billie Eilish does. Oh, her videos are creative. Okay, I get that. Oh, that's who Dua Lipa is. Okay, I get it. She's doing a throwback disco thing with her new song. So see, just the fact that I could rattle those three things off to you like that, that's all I could tell you. It's like a cursory knowledge. It's a very broad knowledge of just what's happening now, just so I have some name knowledge of it. But I'm not turning off my microphone at 4 Eastern and putting any of that music on in 1,000 years. But I do that because my priority is always rock, but I want to know what's going on. But I mean, a 17-year-old girl with a huge career, whether you like her or not, a huge career right now, who has not even been on the planet at a time that Van Halen ever did anything of note in any real way. Where's the outrage? Why is that mystifying to anyone?